it is I should know. It's just a matter of time. But you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you know what's in store just for you. No more living the life. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. And you know what's in store just for you. No more living the life. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.
Happy Holy Day, Moors, and welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, we are pleased once again to present our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey, as he presents Beware, Reject the U.S. Demo Schism Operations. But before he gets started, be sure to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and share with others. Now, let's receive our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey.
Grand evening. One of the things that's going on today, and it's been going on actually for quite a while, it's not new, but people's awareness of it may be scattered or among a few and not others. So many people may not be aware of schism operations initiated by U.S. governing body politics. Keep in mind, when you're referring to the U.S. government, you're not talking about a nation. You're talking about a foreign political system operating at North America under the guise of being a nation, with particular people being party to that operations who are actually members of the Roman Curia, members of P2 Mason order, who have been imitating and corrupting ancient African and Egyptian customs and perverting many things and many symbols that actually have African origin, and using dark side magic and psychic attacks. Now, schism, for those of you who don't know, commonly spoken of among most people in a layman's term would be called divide and conquer. However, schism is a noun and relates to the division of a group of people into opposing sects, opposing parties, or opposing opinions or positions. Now, schism may relate to opposing philosophical positions, opposing doctrines, opposing disciplines, etc. Schism inducements may also pertain to deliberated political and social psychic attacks as used in military or extrajudicial activities to serve an unseen or hidden source of persons to bring about confusion, divisions, discord, and instabilities upon another group of people to achieve conquest of outcomes, etc. In layman's terms, schism as a war tool is often referred to as invoking by way of subterfuge, deceit, or any other dishonorable method, a division among a targeted group of people for the purposes of creating divisions or the bringing about of what is called divide and conquer effects. Also in relationship to consciousness and cognizance of what's been going on at North America, also known as the Maghreb, which is Morocco, the most extreme west, we will talk about a common phrase that's commonly used among African people in Sabian culture and in ancient texts brought to the modern world, is this phrase, whosoever will, let him come. Whosoever will, let him hear. And now, so people must understand and comprehend and understand the relationship of will in relationship to philosophies and positions that one might take. So in relationship to the capacity, the intent, or to the impulse, etc., of one to decide, to initiate an action, to exercise self-control, or to adhere to one's desires or ordainments, etc. And will may also pertain to having something of focus as one's object or will and intent unconditionally. Now, to hear also it pertains to the perception of sound in the ear, also an adherence to what is known or perceived, etc., and to act accordingly, etc., or to respond accordingly. And so when you talk about will, that is more or less the power in divine nature of beings of what is often referred to as free will. So ultimately, things in life and our experiences in life often, more often than we consider most of the time, relate to our consenting or agreeing to things, to ideas, to philosophies, to intent, etc., related to what we perceive, what we know, what we allege to believe, etc. And much of this has to do with the relationship of cognizance or consciousness of the being. So one of the things that we need to look at is the cognizance that exist in general among our people of the West, and particularly the Aboriginal copper complexion people of the Western Hemisphere, artificially tagged with nom de guerres such as Negro, Black, Indian, etc., who are actually of Canaanite Moabite blood and are the Aboriginal and true heirs and peoples of the land, and part of the schism operations that has been successful with the particularly some among, not all, some among the hybrid Europeans who have been operating at North America under the guise of a national political order, when actually it is a private corporation operations of the Vatican and members of the Roman Curia for conquest purposes. However, it's important to recognize that many of the people have not been aware that what they've been calling or trained in schools is a country designated or styled as the United States. Many of them were not aware of the fact that that's actually a private corporation registered in Austria. Also, many of you who have been dealing with us or doing research for yourselves over the years, as you know, we've been exposing that the U.S. is a private corporation, and we even shared their corporate papers with many of you as evidence for those who we know who would be countering the consciousness of the people to keep the people asleep as to what's going on, and therefore keep the schism operations going that divide the people against themselves and have many people who have not been properly made erudite in the school systems, using induced belief systems in substitution for knowledge or facts, etc., and thereby causing and also maintaining schisms amongst the natural people of the land. Now, keep in mind, many people have been trained to argue the social or psychic attack paradigm known as racism and prejudice at North America, and are under the concept that every hybrid European that may be the neighbor down the street is necessarily your enemy. That's not necessarily true. Understand that the hybrids that have been creating the subversion and the suppression and the subjugation of the natural people under unum sanctum operations and Dum Diverse's operations are mainly and predominantly located or holding de facto positions in government. So it's not your neighbors that are doing things to you. It is people in government or people who are claimed to be government, and also people whom they contract and other subdivisional corporate entities to guise the fact that that the action actually comes from them. As an example, when you do research at the Maghreb or North America, Maghreb, you'll find many people talk about things such as Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Tuskegee experiments, etc., where they have via their sanctum operations and Dum Diverse's operations, killing off and poisoning and destroying by virtue of different methods of genocide our people, the Aboriginal people of Morocco, America, the real Americans. And keep in mind, the real Americans, they refer to us as the copper complexion people, or the people with skin like burnished brass, as if burnt in the oven, and having generally woolly hair, etc., i.e., Moabite, Canaanite stock, etc. The Aboriginal, real, true Americans. And because of the schism operations, many of the hybrid Europeans have been successfully, and particularly since around 1861 in that area, promoting themselves as the Americans falsely in order to project the evils that they've been doing on the planet onto America and the real people of America. And that would often be done in what they would call, from a psychic attack perspective, of initiating an action or an attack under what is guised as blackface. And this is where the hybrid Europeans would hire contractors or themselves, and it would be initiated from people who claim to be government, where they would darken their skin and do devious things to blame what they have been doing to people around the world, and particularly here at the North, on the Aboriginal people, and they have been quite successful at that. And so therefore, we must be reminded to be aware of the projection strategies that have been used under the Dum Diverse operations and the schism operations for the successes of conquest at North America. However, also, about 18 years ago, from this location, actually around the corner, I did a lecture in November of 2003 in relationship to a lot of things that we're dealing with today. And with this particular book, this was a copy, or what you would call transliteration of that conversation. Was actually a conversation, and so they made it into a book. It's called Evolve Will Become Fertilizer for Those Who Are. Now, I'm going to read a couple of passages because it is in tune with what's going on today. So this is an opening statement of, in that book. I'll read a few. Forward. The contents of this book are derived from a lecture given by Taj Tarik Bey on November the 15th of 2003, 1423 MC, at Moorways, located on Market Street at Wilmington, Delaware, North America, northwest of Mexico. Taj was asked to speak on the subject of unity and economics. However, his perspective, surprisingly, was not expected by the masses, as he first saw it most important to bring to the table the true, quote unquote, meaning of unity, quote unquote, and to dispel the commonly accepted myth that we as a people don't come together. And once the concept of unity was explained, a clearer understanding and comprehension of economics was gained. Once the issue involving economics was understood, we could more easily grasp why the gross national product, quote unquote, of the nation never matches up to reality and to true labor output. This information or informative lecture may prove to be very useful for all those who are in an honest search for social, political, and economic remedies for our Aboriginal natural peoples and for all natural indigenous peoples in general. Much of the information is based in true law, true historical facts, truth in religion, what it is not, relative to spirituality, and relative to what is happening now. Unity in economics are not limited to what you may have assumed or to what you have been told. And once you have read this booklet, pass it on to those you love. Opening statement by Taj Tarik Bey. I want to address the unity in constitutional principles, but I also want, prior to a break, a few questions because I want to see where your minds are so I can go there. It is better to feel where the people are and work off that than to prepare something and bring you something just because it might be interesting. Because it doesn't really work. We need to work with the spirit and what needs to be fixed. On unity. First of all, unity is something people always throw about with us, and they always say we need unity, unity, unity. It must be understood that the word unity is presented to you, as presented to you, and is presented to you. What it actually means is nationhood. Usually people say we need to get together to do something. We need to get together to do some economic things. We need to get together spiritually, economically, and politically. Well, guess what? That's not true. We've always been together. We party together. We go to picnics together. We go to barbecues together. We go to jams together. Whatever. And we've always been together. What we have not had are national principles, quote unquote, that bind us as one on a political forum. No matter where we are, or whatever part of the land we are in or at, with a common law. And that's the principle of unity. It's called anciently, not modernly, anciently, Constitution. You must understand that Constitution did not begin with the misconcepts a lot of us have that the Europeans brought in constitutional principles. Constitutional principles are ancient as government and civilization is. Organized civilized government is based in constitutional principles and is called positive law. Positive law is called jurisprudence. Jurisprudence is founded in nature's God and nature's law. That which is founded by the Creator and nature. All universal law, or what we commonly refer to as Allah, all law. And for those who may be confused, Allah is a feminine word and is a feminine appellation or feminine name. So don't get confused with this masculine and feminine game that they've been playing with you in the name of religion, because it deals with divine law, universal. One of the things I recognize as one of the great weaknesses among us, and why most quote unquote vampires have been able to suck off the energies of the Asiatics of this planet, and not just particularly here, but on this planet as a whole, that has been smoked by quote unquote religion in our concepts and what religion is and what religion is not. Religion, originally as founded by the ancient Moabites, were teaching systems of our relationship with nature, your building blocks, the way you are made, how you operate in nature, how nature operates with you, your connection with everything that is in nature. And this is called divine law. It is not spooky and it is not conjecture. It is not based in beliefs. These are fundamental, functional facts. However, wicked caliphs, priests, and thieves have used these religious systems to create quote unquote secret principles for themselves to rule the masses. They start injecting agendas that have nothing to do with divine law, quote unquote, creating and making up quote unquote versions of quote unquote gods, and then selling them to the public and to the people, then dividing the people, then sucking off of them and using quote unquote the devil quote unquote as a scapegoat, and thereby ruling the world. That is the real deal. So when most people look at the hybrid Europeans and look at different armies and are saying, oh wow, look at all the things they are doing to the world, believe me, it is not religionists that did it. One of the biggest problems with us trying to get out of this thing is with the muddled concepts of and about our salvation, quote unquote. And we run to the very people who actually are the vampires. And one of the hardest things to do in communicating with people is to tell the truth and to have them accept it, because they want to beat you up. Because most of us are biased by whatever denominations or scholarism, secularism, and religionisms we belong to. And I am Muslim, but I will never deny that the wicked caliphs created divisions in Islam. The Quran says there shall be no secularism in Islam, yet you have all kinds of sects, quote unquote, just like in all other religious denominations. So let's not be or get self-righteous about these matters. The other deal is we must remember that both Muslims and Christians, etc., maintain quote unquote slaves and forced servitude. So again, don't get self-righteous. The weaknesses that we have is that when we don't know the real history of our social and political connection here in North America, the Crusaders have buried a lot of that history. And therefore, much of that is connected to us, or that is our actual birthright we reject. Because we think it belongs to the hybrid Europeans, the old deal of throwing the baby out with the bathwater is part of vampirism. Because in our blind rejection, actually, we are throwing out the political power to our birthrights by denying something because we assume that someone else is the founder of established government, which includes religion. I want to hit on certain things because it is important for you to understand and comprehend and not to assume otherwise. I may say certain things that technically and organizationally people don't say or don't want to say because it destroys institutions. But I'm not gaming like that. I'm for freeing my babies. I don't want my babies to suffer as I have suffered. And I will sacrifice me to make sure they have a chance. And I am not selling out. Secret institutions, Masonry, Skull and Bones, Jesuits, etc., Knights of Columbus, Ku Klux Klan, the whole crew. Why are they wearing our fez? Because they are all using the ancient Moorish principles of government to rule you with. When you start rejecting them out of hand without explanation or without examination, thinking that those clubs belong to them and that and have nothing to do with you, you have made your first mistake. Because that is your real history buried. It is not quote unquote black history. Your history is in those lodges. Your history is in governments around the planet. That is a diversion. We get into this thing. Oh, that's secret societies, and that is his thing. No, that is coded because Moors taught the Europeans Masonry. Masonry is just a modern system of structured government based on the ancient mystery schools of the ancient Moabites to bring them into government. We taught them governmental principles, civilization principles. But in order to rule you, they must not allow you to know that that's what it is. That is the nature of secrecy, not that it is a secret, because it really is not so much a secret as you think it is. They even hide it in yoga, in your advanced yoga lessons. If any one of you want to begin freeing yourselves from a suppressed mind of what you think religion is, and what you think it is not, and what you think spirituality is, and what you think it is not, breath, breathe, meditate, take ablution, pray, and go get yourself an advanced yoga book and read it from front to back and from back to front and free yourselves. These and those are keys. I'm throwing that out there because you need to know it. United States. The other thing is you must understand the Constitution that evolved for the United States, Central America, Central North America. First, you must know that it is not the only United States. So when you say United States, you don't let anyone play with you. And we're not just talking the different jurisdictions of quote unquote United States within this particular territory. We are talking about the fact that there is more than one United States political forum in North, Central, and South America. And you have the United States of Mexico. You have the United States of Brazil. You have the United States of El Salvador. And these are all United States of America. The United States of America in Central America, you assume, in Central North America, you assume is a national name. You must understand that it is not a national name. It is a political confederation phrase absent of the national name. And this is the United States of Morocco that you've been assuming was the United States of America. And that is the great Masonic secret. America is Al-Moroccan or Al-Moroccanos. And we the people, that is the stated, or that is stated in the preamble for the Constitution of the United States, or Constitution for the United States, is Society Republique El Moroccanos, and that is we the people who set this Constitution for the United States of America, which is the unity or the unit between the few select European sons and the Moors whose government was beginning to fall. And it was a compromise. It wasn't like the Moors got a good idea and thought they would be moral and good and teach the Europeans government and make this thing nice and peaceful for our posterity. No, the Moorish government was falling apart because of divisions, economic subversion, political subversion, etc. And so teach them government. And the fate was charted, and we Moors, the Aboriginal people of the land, the true Americans, recognized that if we didn't do something, we would lose it all. And so Chief Justice Ben Bey, who you have heard about in history books as Ben Banneker, was assigned the job to teach them masonry or orders of government. And this is the role, the real role of quote unquote Ben Bey in what they call modern U.S. history, and why you see Washington, District of Columbia laid out Masonically. But you can only see that from the air, and that's on the side. And that's something for you to research on your own, and you must understand that relationship. Now, on the matters of the economics that was discussed at this lecture in 203, they asked me about money. So real money. And you must also understand that most of you have never handled money, quote unquote. There may be a few here that are older and have handled silver and gold coins, but not too many. And most of you young brothers and sisters have never handled money. And the last time they had a silver coin operative at North America was in 1964. And around 1968, they sent out agents, U.S. agents, out as private entrepreneurs who were giving you so many Federal Reserve notes for whatever silver coins you had, 50-cent pieces and silver dollars, etc. They were actually government agents, etc., who were really trying to get the real money, because that was the money. And I want you to think about this and to practice this when you go out and do your dealings. And that this is the principle that we need to carry into practice. Even those of us who are dealing with business or in business. Without economic security, you have nothing. First, you must understand that you don't have any money because you haven't been allowed to have money. So don't start saying you have money. You must begin to change your language. Call it finance. When you are paying bills, you are not paying bills. It is a transfer that is given as a lien, a transferred quote unquote lien that is basically discharged. But the lien is maintained on you in your name for quote unquote credits. The credit is nothing upon nothing upon nothing. Credit is the system that the Albion hybrid Europeans set up after they overthrew the Moorish government to maintain the forced servitude. And to assume that you could not have any money to buy yourself out of servitude, the plot was set forth to steal all the money and to send it to Europe. Understand that no debt, this is law, that no debt can be satisfied without gold or silver coins. And when you think that you are paying a bill, they accept the artifice and they dissolve or discharge it on their books, but the lien is placed upon and against you in your name. And this is how they really misuse the Social Security number, the driver's license, the birth certificate, and the marriage license. Of course, you know the marriage licenses come under Article 39 of police powers. I repeat, marriage licenses come under Article 39 of police powers. It has nothing to do with divine anything. And that's the system of controlling the womb without you getting offended. In other words, the state, quote unquote, corporate state, plays the pimp. And that way they control the issue, quote unquote, under quote unquote wardship, WARDSHIP. And you are not fighting it because you think slavery is over. But you just signed a contract. And of course, you know how to qualify that or how to reserve your rights. And this is for most of the people who have been studying contract law, etc. And so slavery is Slovakian. Understand that when you use the word slavery, that it is Slovakian. And that is when the Red Russians went into Czechoslovakia and forced servitude on them, or the Slavic nations or Slavic tribes. And slave actually means Slovakian. It does not mean you. And when you say that you are a slave, or you are arguing issues in reparations and you say slave, you have already taken yourself out of the jurisdiction, and it's not going to work. And they know that you're not Slovakians, you are Moors. But they put the connotative on the word slave, as if it is a noun describing the condition of forced servitude. And that is connotative, but it is actually a nationality. And these are tricks, and you must change your language. Unity is national. The unity that is necessary for you to begin fixing this thing is called nationalization, politically. We are not talking about your beliefs or how you feel or your emotions and where you are at. It is happening. And we are talking about the actual factual law, universal. And you cannot become who your mothers and fathers were. You can only declare it. You cannot become more. You can only become Moorish, or you always were and always will be, whether you claim it or whether you do not. And one of the problems is many people have this information and keep presenting this information from a perspective of a belief, and people don't know that it has all to do with their pedigree, their bloodline, their birthright, their political rights on this planet. And it has nothing to do with whether you believe in a God or not. Therefore, their concepts on how to look at this thing is totally wrong. And it does not mean that you are moral or immoral. It means that you must understand that it is being said, what is being said to you. And when Noble Drew Ali, our illustrious prophet, came here and declared that you are a nation, he was dealing with law, and he was dealing with heads of government. He was the first representative in modern times to represent the descendants of the ancient Moabites in their proper person status, which was necessary to make a stand at law before the nations of the earth. Outside of that, it is, if it is a Negro, black, or colored argument, it is just a movement. It is just a complaint. It is a program. Because there is no such people that live on this planet, therefore, there are no laws to govern them except for programs and whatever has jurisdiction over that chattel chose to be president. I.e., that is where the 14th and 15th Amendments came in political operations at North America. We can go further, but as an introductory, that's some of the lecture that I gave around the corner in 2003, and much of those dynamics have manifested themselves with the people to this day, and many people around the country and outside of the land have become conscious of their nationality and become more active, comprehending that the bloodline and pedigree of the Moors of North America has often been falsely misrepresented as a religious belief system when it's in fact their pedigree, etc. And to solve problems, what we cannot afford to do is to continue to look at things from an emotional perspective, but actually do some research and comprehend what's actually been going on here at North America. And so keep in mind, even when people are making reference to what is known politically in the congressional records and also in federal papers with the infiltration into the Moorish Divine and National Movement, you'll find the phrase often spoken of as the so-called the great sellout that no one talks about in detail. And I say to you, the great sellout has much to do with the schismata operations set forth via three-letter agencies that were used to infiltrate all organizations or any activities of all our Aboriginal people to literally commit murder, assassinations, distortions, misinformation, and other corruptions of information by deletion, by corruption, or by alterations to create, to sustain, and to maintain and manage schism operations at North America. And thus, this is why we're presenting tonight. Be aware of and reject U.S. schism operations. And by you knowing some things about of what they've been doing, that would give you intellectual capacities to intelligently make decisions to reject schism operations. But keep in mind, even when you see a lot of the quote-unquote divisions amongst Moorish groups, 90% of that divisions come from the early or late 20s and to the mid-30s with the infiltration of all Asiatic African organizations by the hybrid Europeans disguised as government to create those schisms, etc. So keep in mind the schisms are not just a natural activity of the people, but they're actually political war psychic attacks. So be aware of them and start rejecting them. Was there some questions?
I'm just looking at comments, a lot of
Yeah.
which I know I would like to present a question just from my own observation, because as you know, the events over the last couple of weeks with the rise of the Moors,
flag operations.
With the rise of the Moors has caused a lot of even more division and schism about who the Moors are, or who should be doing what, or who is to blame. Namely, I've heard a lot of unseen comments where folk want to go so far as to blame you, who was, here in this territory when that thing went off. And there's a tendency for many to look for one individual to be able to solve all of the ills and the problems that we are facing. And I want to know, are you putting yourself out as our savior?
Never has been that. What I've done is shared research information with people. And again, part of schism operations, and if you even look at some of the concepts that for people who have been trying to create those schisms, one of the practices is to blame the victim or blame the truth teller. Now, if you'll notice that 90% of the time when people make such statements like that, they will never give you what you would call a truth statement and then claim what I said is a lie. Meaning that if I told the people that 1 and 1 is 8 and they acted on that and created some problems, then some of those criticisms would be justified. But to tell the people the truth that they're not Negro, Black, or colored, and that they're Moors, and that this is their land, that they're the Aboriginal people, and they act on it is not an injury to the people, but simply a revelation of truth. However, at the same time, it creates problems for people, the hybrid Europeans who've been faking as government and faking as Americans, and it also creates problems for Asiatic Africans who hate Asiatic Africans and who are indeed themselves sellouts, many of who have or belong to organizations that it can be found, in fact, are Boule. It can be found and, in fact, are 501c3 skull and bones receivers to maintain the Christian Black codes, which is why they keep promoting Black, Negro, and colored in their organizations, etc., to create divisions. So logically, such persons and such beings would be upset with anybody, not just me, or anyone who would reveal any truths that would expose them. Because what you'll recognize a lot of the schism is not just from the hybrid Europeans in government, but many people among ourselves. And so that's called, in political operations, projection. And this is where people who have created schism operations themselves projected on others who have been countering schism operations.
There is a sister, Moabitess, who's been on here for ever since I've been doing at least the lives. I noticed when I was doing office hours, and she's been a part of it. And she seems to, when I just asked the question, she said I made a great point that if you're not the savior, because that's what I asked, then why are you calling? You should stop calling yourself a grand sheik. There are many grand sheiks out there because her baby.
All over the place.
Let me finish if you don't mind. Her baby, and you've heard, but I haven't given you any great details, but you kind of know about it, from a standpoint of us having some discussion. There are many people or like her with many issues, and I mean each person's issue is their own, but I have to put it out there. You are not the savior of everyone, and I saw somebody else put out there that you're giving out you're putting out information, and we have to
seek remedy.
But you are not you're not writing writs for people. You're not.
No.
Not.
People must bear their own cross. That's number one. And number two, the call for our people in consciousness is for us to recognize that we all play a part in the liberation of our people. There shall be no sacrificial lambs. And so when people are even mentioning this whole idea about savior, their concepts are wrong and concept is corrupted. And the deal of it is, if most of our people would not have been continuously among themselves promoting the black codes upon themselves by claiming to be blacks and Negroes, etc., and rejecting, which is what our subject matter is, the schism operations, many of the problems that we have would have been solved a long time ago to some degree. The other deal of it is many people, rather than charge the commissioner or those who commit the crime, i.e. hybrid Europeans, who have been under the guise of government stealing people's children and actually doing human trafficking for centuries. This is not new at North America. And when we talk about North America, we're talking about Canada. Now, so if you'll notice that when people bring up these issues and start bringing up issues for remedy and constitutional enforcement and treaty enforcement and principle applications, rather than them admit or talk about the priesthood and the churches who have been raping, murdering, or sacrificing children for centuries. There's probably no old church at North America, and that includes Canada, that doesn't have hundreds and even thousands of bodies of children that they have been robbing for centuries. And this is what she should be talking about.
I mean, I realize that in this particular case, is specifically, when it's your issue, is your issue. So you there are other people, but it becomes personal. I think the point I want to make, because I'm going to say this, and I know she hears me. I think it's totally unfair for her to use this platform to share, and that's good, but to use it to blast a person I'm going to call you a person, to blast you and call you fakes and you're not this, because specifically that particular problem has not been worked out. There are a lot of people that you have helped. There are a lot of people who are right on this call, on this live, that can attest to the fact that, and you never spoke with them personally, but they took the information that you provided and they studied themselves and they were able to apply it and assist it. But I understand pain, but I think when you start to talk about schism, that this conversation is part of the schism, because we can't get anywhere if we, if I'm gonna just get angry with you because you didn't help me, doesn't mean you didn't help 99, because that it could be helped. So let's not knock somebody.
Is what the other thing that many people will complain should be doing is, what have they done?
Well, I'm pretty sure she's done a lot of things, but here's what I want you to address: the fact that even though what you are telling us is true, we are under occupation. And
now,
because we're
well.
but because we're under occupation, even though even the true things are being attacked as if they're not true. So I mean, I have literally spoken with people who have gotten their children back by declaring them as property. I even shared that information with my sister. Yeah. But you know, I don't know specifically how to do the paperwork per se, but when I found out about it, I shared it.
You know what it's like? This is back to, you know, what I've said for many years. If our people would sincerely put as much effort into the restoration of their birthright as they've been doing in their club religions, etc., much of what they're complaining about would have been resolved by themselves and people around them that they have been funding and supporting in the name of whatever God games they have been playing, etc., and have not produced anything but made the people poorer, including the fact that even the nations of the earth, as we talked about for years, even in 1960, deal with what is known as the Committee of 24, talking about decolonization. And North America is one of the major places that they talked about. But instead of our people dealing with national principles, as Noble Drew Ali said, since 1913, they've been going around marching and praying and then wanting other results and then getting mad at other people for not doing the work that they themselves should have been doing. Let's look at this also, Dr. Naila. How many people has it been known that would stand up and tell the truth in opposition and taking the beating even from people who could benefit from this information, rather than them attacking or addressing the people that are doing the injury? Now, for the public, I'll say this. I did not influence and I did not take part in taking her baby. That was some hybrid Europeans who she's not addressing. And she wants to accuse me or someone else of taking her baby.
No, not taking, no, but not getting her back.
If you didn't restore, the one who's the restorer is the one who did the deed. Let's get clear. In other words, if I didn't take your sandwich, don't argue that I didn't feed you. That's number one. The real deal is, for years, we've been telling the people about status. We can tell people about the black codes. And if they say that that's wrong, that's their choice to do. However, those are the issues that have been going on. Our people have been spending their time, their energy, their finance, supporting people who've been promoting the black codes, getting the black codes enforced on them, then getting mad at others who've been exposing it. Now, the deal of it is the rule that it is in African culture is this. Every man, every woman, and every child must confess their own and worship under their own vine and fig tree. And if she had been operating under that perspective, then she would have that argument to make for herself, not for others. And when the book, and when the culture, and when the traditions say that every man, every woman, every child must confess their own, you can't put the obligation of confessing your own on another. It is your own responsibility. However, it is our duty, brothers and sisters, to come to each other's aid when one's in adversity. It is not your responsibility to carry their cross. This is not the age of carrying any crosses for anyone. This is the age for all men and women, and even the children, because the book says even the children to confess their own. So age don't even matter. If you get the point, you can't even make the excuse that you didn't know. Or now this comes back to consciousness. And so those who are spiritually in tune and harmonic with coming out of the three-dimensional energies and going into higher dimensions or higher planes of life, they will recognize the truth as their own. Those who have not will not and will reject the truth and get angry at those who speak the truth. And if I have told a lie, identify that lie. If you have not identified that lie, you should sit back and stop interrupting with the progress of people who are helping to remedy or to bring remedy and consciousness to the people to reject the schisms that many of you are still operating in.
No, like I said, I totally understand the pain.
The pain does not justify fraud.
Yeah, I understand the pain. You know, I've lost
All of us have suffered.
I've lost a child who was
their
transitioned. No, it was to their
Don't
hands.
ever suspect that it wasn't a
Right.
psychic attack.
So I know the pain.
Yes.
Okay. But what I'm saying is I think I need my sister to redirect her anger, because we all feel it. We all want her baby to be back in her arms, but we all
and there's
can't
others,
necessarily make it happen
around the country who have the same issues.
True.
It's not, remember, none of us stand alone with this. There's many people around the country who have the exact same issue. Now, here we go with the issues of nations of the earth coming together and dealing with conventions. So write this down, those of you who are listening. The conventions on genocide, and read it. Also, the rights of indigenous people, and read it and act on it. Meaning that you can show people certain information, certain facts, but if they don't accept them, they have the right not to accept them. But that's still called free willism. Where everything that is done today with humanity is free will. Those who will go to the higher planes of life and would be showing themselves spiritually capable of dealing with higher dimensions, etc., often referred to the fifth and sixth dimension, etc., and the quantum thinking, which is a spiritual ascension, etc., will start creating their environment accordingly. And those who want to stay in the third dimension or energy and still worship under Rome, etc., will have that right of that experience. However, as we talked about a year ago, Dr. Naila, when I mentioned that all masks are off,
Yes.
that includes both Asiatics and Europeans and hybrid Europeans. Wherever your spirit is, your mask is off. And don't charge other people with your own dirt. Now, that's a fact. And don't think that our experiences are not necessarily groomed by ourselves, because you are creators and makers of your own condition also. Take responsibility. Stop trying to put your responsibilities on others. However, participate with others who are trying to help. In other words, don't try to bite the hands that are trying to feed you.
Lord help you. Let me put this question out that Moors in America posted, and I asked them to repost. Please clear this up, Brother Taj. And at new channel, Root Words 1, a citizen is a member of a free jural, JURAL society.
Not necessarily, but continue.
Okay, let me go back. Okay, wait a minute. Where'd it go? Oh, man. Let me just post it up here. So, yeah, please clear this up. Okay. New channel, Root Words 1. A citizen is a member of a free jural society. That is from Black's Law Dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
And they're telling the other one that they're uneducated. But is that true?
That's true. Now, keep in mind, in the principle of civilization and constitutional enforcement, keep in mind it is the duty of the citizens, etc., in fundamental civics to enforce the constitutions and the treaties, etc. The question goes out, and with a statement: have the people who are presenting questions now, and at other times, have they been doing that? Have they been enforcing the Constitution for the United States, etc., which provably and historically and factually come from Muslim law? Have they?
I'm getting
now, the experience has been that they have not. The record has shown that they have not. However, many of them want the benefit of that, don't they? Don't they?
Right. I'm gonna go back to, this is the last time I'm gonna go to this, because I want Sade Renee L to say how you lied to her. First of all, I'm gonna ask you a question. Have you ever spoken personally to Sade Renee L with regard to the situation with her baby?
Not that I'm aware of immediately.
Right. So
I've talked to many thousands of people actually.
But about right. So I need her, because before she makes that kind of statement on this platform that you lied to her, she needs to qualify that, because she's putting stuff out here, and I'm like that far away from doing what I said I was going to do, and I don't want to do it. I know this platform, she uses it, to share her information, but I can't keep just dealing with that kind of energy is very negative. I want her to get her baby back, but I want her to stop lying. So I'm about that far away from. So I want to know how you lied.
I don't know what she's talking about.
Right, I know you don't, because I know you haven't spoken to her.
No.
Right, so Dr. G lied because it's incorrect. I lied. I've tried to help her. Sade, I'm about to block you because I've always almost stopped letting anybody put any comments in, just because the comments always go south on this subject matter. I have not lied to you. I have tried to assist you. I personally know of others like Brother Lamont L, who you trashed on here, who has tried to help you. Okay, let me put it out there. I've seen you arguing with other people on this particular platform who said they've tried to help you, and then when it doesn't work out, now the people are no good or liars. You got to stop this. You absolutely have got to stop this. We got too much stuff going on, and I know it's important to you to get your baby back. I want you to get your baby back, but you're not going to use this platform to trash, myself, Grand Sheik, or others that are really on here to get to study and to improve. Now you need to say if he lied to you, or if I lied to you, how did I lie to you? And when did he lie to you also? Because I know you haven't spoken to him. So please stop putting that information in. Or I'm serious. The next thing is I'm just gonna block you. I'm putting it out there. I don't want to. Yeah, somebody saying don't block her, but this is too much. We can't get anything done dealing with this back and forth stuff. You saying so help you. There's a way to get help, but you don't get help by trashing everybody, saying that the Moors are no good, that none of the church was better to you than the Moors. Then go back to the church. Then I come from the church. I was a pastor. So if you think that you're going to get more help from the church, then that's where you should go. We want you to get your baby, but you're not going to use this platform to trash the good work that we're about. And I mean that. I absolutely mean that from the bottom of my heart, my sister. You're young enough to be my grandchild. I got grandchildren older than you. So I mean ill will, but I will not allow you one more session that I have to use this platform as your personal platform to stand up and to trash people who have not been able to help you. Not that they haven't wanted to, but have for whatever reason have not been able to help you. We're sending you love. We're sending you, some people have sent you finances, and you still being nasty. Come on now. And I mean that. It's all love, but I'm not going to allow you to do this. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about, okay, oh, I'm a bitch. You said block. Okay, all right. Now I'm a bitch. Guess what? You are no longer a part of this. You're gone. Let's continue. We're done with that. Done with that. Y'all gonna have to find her on her page. And if she puts some nasty stuff out there about me, you all know what happened. Because there's a problem. There's obviously a problem, and I've let it go on far too long. So she's blocked. Let's continue.
All right. Any other questions?
Let me see. Do you all have any yeah, she probably did want me to block her so she can have a scapegoat. But you all know I have taken and allowed the stuff that has been put on the chat for several months, and I was almost ready to stop so no one could put any comments, just so I would not have to single her out specifically. I've tried, but we're gonna move forward. You know what I mean? So if she says anything about me or Grand Sheik on any of our other platforms, it's up to you all. Y'all either know us or you don't. We're not agents. We are about putting in the work to get the information. We are not saviors. I also invite you all, if you can, August 27th, since I'll just take a break for that. August 27th, we're having an up close and personal at the House of Reawakening Minds. First time we're coming together as a House of Reawakening Minds in almost a year and a half, with Grand Sheik, myself, and a couple special guests. We want you to come, and we want to be able to talk about some things that we not necessarily want to do and we can't do in this venue. But we are inviting you to get your tickets. Tickets are limited. We probably have about, I want to say about 50 left. And if you want to come, I would suggest you get your ticket quick, because once we reach the number, the link will be disabled. But with that said, if you have any questions, the reason why, let me just say this, the reason why we came on earlier today, we had to change the schedule today because Grand Sheik has another commitment that conflicted with our regular time. So rather than not have anything at all, we came on a little bit earlier in order to at least have, so they could have at least a 2-hour conversation. I had no idea it was going to go south like this, but unless, she creates another, ID and comes on, but I'll block that person too. Hopefully we'll be able to have a decent chat. And I wish her well. I hope she does get her baby back. And that's no lie. But I'm not going to sacrifice House of Reawakening Minds and this channel and this platform for that, with that attitude. So if you have any questions, please post them now. Grand Sheik wants to at least respond to your questions. That bothers me, but we must go on. I mean, because I hated to do that, because I really have tried to assist that young lady, but I'd be darned if I'm going to deal with that psychotic crap any longer. Any questions? Let me see. Kempton Reynolds is asking, can you speak about the rise of the Moors? What do you want spoken about? I mean,
one of the things that everyone should look at first is recognize that that's a false flag. That's number one. Number two, all of you should read treaty and constitutional law and identify the parties and identify, in fact, by either discovery or by fact, if they violated any constitutional or treaty laws. My presentment is that they violated no laws. What is the issue other than that's being a false flag with them trying to intimidate? Because every day, including wherever they were on our land, and keep in mind the private police are actually agents for the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, etc., and the United States Corporation. And when you look at any Supreme Court laws, it tells you that those persons of the so-called police are in fact not constitutional enforcements or constitutional officers, but they are actually private contractors for the United States Corporation and their services to the private corporation and not to the people. And the rise of the Moors are being attacked by foreign corporate operatives pretending that they violated law. And again, as far as them even blocking their sites, etc., is indicative of unum sanctum expurgatorius and prohibitorum operations, schism operations. I would challenge anyone to prove that the Moors violated any treaty or constitutional laws, and I suggest that that is not the case.
Let me see. Let me get back up here.
And the fact, the interesting thing too, Dr. Naila, is how quick many of our people, even our people who claim to be black, the first thing they did was attack the Moors for exercising a right that already belonged to them. The right to bear arms is not constitutional, that's a divine right. That's a natural right. And all constitutional rights that are stated in the Honesty Confederation for the Constitution for the United States does not give any right. It only acknowledges rights that already belong to the people. That's a fact. Therefore, they have a right to bear arms by nature, not by constitutional principle, by nature. The Constitution is only in place to verify that or to acknowledge that.
I'm just going to ask those of you who are asking questions, when you do ask a question, could you make it a complete question?
Be specific.
Be specific. Some of your questions are abstract. Like when you say what of Jamal and the rise, that's to me that's not a what do you want to know
You're
about
dealing
that?
with the principle, not
Right.
not with person.
Please give us complete question. But here's one who's asking, Aduke is asking, Biden trying to force mandated V's. What can we do?
That's part of. Keep in mind, you look at all the laws concerning medical, or what you would call principles of genocide. That's an act of genocide. They have no rightful authority to impose that on anyone. Period. By law. As a matter of fact, there's quite a few laws that even them saying that is actually a violation of national and international law. Do some research in those areas because that's a subject in its own right. And keep in mind when they're trying to impose those things, they're taking people as their private property, etc. This is another reason why you nationalize and act accordingly. Because the issue is also status and wardship, which we mentioned again just earlier.
Okay. Conscious Ether asks, can you speak about the white, gray, and black hope?
The white, gray, and black hope. These are simply nom-de-guerre terms that are used in social engineering, etc., and have nothing to do in reality with pedigree or genetics.
I guess the question might be, are there different entities? I've heard, I'm not sure if it's true, that there, the one we see, there's someone behind that one that's even higher.
Yeah, there's two things involved here.
Yeah.
Now, as far as off-worlders or in-worlders, that's nothing new here on this planet, so that's a fact. That's number one. And number two, when they're talking about the grays, they're talking about actually a broad species that come from small to large, and some of their agendas are benevolent, some are not. Some of them are actually biological robots. That's the real truth. Now, the deal of it is one of the things that, as the hybrid Europeans have been being exposed by many, even among their own today, the old adage has been used, as you already know, even when a lot of the priesthood are now being exposed. It's the old game of the devil made me do it. I didn't take your bite, the devil did it type thing. But I say to you, if an octopus grabs your arm, look at that tentacle that's grabbing your arm, and if you want to remove it, consider cutting it off, and you'll worry about the head of the octopus later. In other words, if the IRS stole your property, if members of the Roman Curia operating for the Rothschilds, etc., through the Federal Reserve, etc., to defraud you, don't start looking at the grays. Start looking at the hybrids that are doing it. Start looking at the people that you called falsely government. In other words, don't start accusing the grays of anything that hybrid Europeans are doing to you. That's an excuse, and that's called projection. Doesn't mean whether or not grays exist. And keep in mind, in the rule, universal rule of contract and operation, principal and agent are one. So if an agent is doing something, they are responsible as the principal. So therefore, don't let the hybrids off by blaming things on the grays or anyone else.
Here's a question. Let's see. I just heard they have acknowledged the Indian Treaty and the Indian people are taking advantage of that right. Is this true?
First of all, you got to understand that Indian is a false paradigm, just like Negro is. If you want to talk about what is called Indians, they called us Indians. You may be talking about Anayanguia and many of the Moorish tribes here. But when you make first the Indian, that is just a cover up for Naga, and also for a lot of the Canaanite, Moabites, Hittites, from what you know as Sindh or Hindustan. And there's no such thing as India. That's another diversion.
But though there are those who have are benefiting from that designation in the U.S.
paradigm.
Right, because they're giving them paradigm. Yeah, they're giving them certain benefits and territorial
rights. Isn't that a schism?
Absolutely.
Now, as an example, for those of you listening, do the research, and you'll see the term Native American was, I think that was in I forget the term, in the 70s, around 1970, that was another social term that they made up. And keep in mind, when you adopt the tags and the nom de guerre created by the hybrid Europeans, that's to bring you under false jurisdictions, to create schisms, to promise benefits that are never delivered. And that's part of schism operations. Keep that in mind. The arguments of, Indians and Native Americans, etc. These are terms made for schism operations. And do some research. Matter of fact, for some of you, just look up quickly, when did the term Native American originate and who originated? And you'll see that it's even some of the even hybrid Europeans that made these terms up to get benefits. These paradigms were created on the Bureau of Indian Affairs, created by hybrid Europeans to promise some of the Aboriginal or indigenous people benefits distinguished from others to create schism. But if you notice, from past to present, none of these things were of any what you call substantial or long-standing or really effective social political status paradigms. But they were all generally promises with giving cookies to people, if you get the point, to pacify them and to divide them from others.
Here's a question.
And so if they're not talking about Dravidians or Sindh or Hindustan, and they keep using the term Indian, know that you're being played. It's not to reject some of the things that have going on. It's not to do that. It's to put things in perspective and recognize schism operations when you see it.
Okay, here's a question from Aduke. How does the Cuban situation impact U.S.
What situation?
Cuban situation impact? I don't know whether it's
Cuba,
in us or U.S.
Cuba is Isabella. And keep in mind, almost all of the governments around the world have been infiltrated with Roman Curia members, which has much to do with the politics that are going on right now. And Cuba is no different, etc. Most of the people who have been ruling at Isabella, that deals with Castro, Raul, and this present guy that was run out, etc., are usually in one way or another connected to the Roman Curia operations for Unum Sanctum. That's a fact. That's not opinion, etc. So do some research and understand and comprehend that's still part of the conquest of the Maghreb. And so when you're talking about the Moroccan Empire, you're talking about North, Central, South America, including Mexico. So keep that in mind. So the attacks that are made just on us are not limited to us. They're limited from the north to they are including the north to the southlands. And Isabella is included. And Isabella is called Cuba. So know that Cuba is Isabella.
Here's a question from Tony Jones. What is Mr. T, because we know him as that, what is Mr. T doing behind the scenes after they stole the E from him?
See, remember, what really happened was, as many of you know who have been studying, keep in mind they overthrew the republic so they wouldn't have to honor the Constitution principle that come from honesty law, i.e. Muslim law, which Obama told you about when he went to Egypt or Egypt, etc. It is no secret. So understand that the principles of the Constitution for the United States is not hybrid European origin. It's actually Moroccan origin. It is actually the Aboriginal people here from which those principles are derived, bringing the hybrid Europeans into government. But keep in mind that the de facto paradigm of corporate operations, known as the United States Corporation Company, has been bankrupted several times, and they've reinstituted the operations still with the United States included in the title, whether it's all capital letters or mixed incorporated cases, etc. And that Donald Trump was actually requested by military to take that position. Certainly, he would not put himself and his family at risk, but they're actually dealing in the background with the bankruptcy of the United States Corporation Company, and they have actually defaulted. And much of the debt is to the Manchurian families whose gold they've been using since 1954, and you will know them as Chinese or China, which is why they've been attacking China. And the real deal is Donald Trump is assigned to enforce the republic back to the restoration of the republic prior to 1861, etc., and the enforcement of the Constitution. Therefore, Donald Trump is representative of the republic, and the other person, Mr. B, is the CEO of the bankrupt corporation, which was fenced in at located at Washington, D.C., etc., under receivership, which is again why they have the fence around, because you have to have military operations. And Mr. T's job is to negotiate with the nations of the earth, because the U.S. corporation is defunct, and they have defaulted on all debts and are essentially politically done. And so what they're trying to do is build up some kind of credibility to restore the republic that was overthrown in 1861 after the overthrow of the Lincoln administration. And keep in mind, you're looking at them arguing over our estate, which we've been telling you for years.
Okay, here's a question. Are you participating in the Moorish Imperial Restoration Caucus?
No, not directly, no.
Okay. Let me see. Are there any more questions?
Basically, that's what we've been doing for years, for 40 years. But you'll have a lot of active Moors on different fronts trying to restore the integrity of government and the integrity of civic operations with our people at large.
Let me see. Okay, here's the question. How are, no, maybe not clear. See if I can read this. How are there, I'm thinking it's maybe it's the THERE. How are there aliens now? I thought solar system was a holographic projection of our bodies. What is going on? And I know they never went to the moon.
You can look at dimensions. So you can, when you're looking at dimensions, you're also looking at in a phrase that's called higher planes of life. And so you're still coming back to consciousness. And what many of the dark priesthood have been trying to do is suppress or to capture our free will to consciousness in order to what you will call recommit the forced servitude that has been disguised connotatively as slavery on the planet, and then reduce the population so they can control us. That's what's going on now. And the outsiders, or what you might call aliens, the aliens have actually been governing. And it's not necessarily the Greys, as you've been told, but actually been persons who claiming to be JEWs and are not, like you see in the Bible, i.e. the synagogue of Satan.
Yes.
So remember, the Greys, just like the devil game, has been used as a scapegoat for actually Khazarian operators of the Roman Curia who are claiming to be JEWs and are not. That's described in the Bible, particularly by Yeshua, who you call Jesus, when you talk about those who claim to be somebody that they're not. They're claiming to be the people with hair like lamb's wool, skin like burnished brass, but they are not. They're claiming to be Sabians because they took over in the mid 1800s, and they've been claiming to be Saba or claiming to be JEW and are not, but are their father, the devil, i.e., synagogue of Satan. That's who's been governing here. So, let's not try to put it all on the graves. Start looking at who's really been doing the injury to humanity.
Trying to see if there are any other questions. I want to keep in mind, let me throw this up here again, because I am in the mood to block people who are disrespectful. So I just want y'all to know that. Let me see if there's another question.
And also suggest everyone do your own research. And like what we've often said, Dr. Naila, if anyone can disagree, prove what I said is a lie. And do your own research. Take responsibility. Have we not ever said that? Haven't we always told people to take their responsibility? And we give them reference points so they could do research. And we also tell people, you don't have to agree. It's not about agreement. It's about solving problems. Prove what I said to be a lie. And in the process, you'll learn.
I just blocked somebody because they were, they saying that you were on that QBS. But we get a lot.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter when you're trying to prove anything to anyone.
Yeah, folks need to get their head out and saying when it comes to what's really going on. So we just hope.
That's on a low level what's going on politically.
Right.
And it affects us because they're controlling our state.
I don't know if you know this, but this question asks you any recommendation on eliminating jumpers. I'm not sure if they're asking about quantum jumpers. Ask for it's going all over the place. Eliminating jumpers. Okay. I'm not sure.
I can answer it in another way.
Okay.
Most of you are and that's all of us really, are being held in nature to start thinking quantumly.
Yes.
And to come above and out of the third dimensional energy, which is why we've always said to you over the years that some of the things that we're doing today, and that's past tense, including what I talked about in this lecture 203 that I read from around the corner 18 years ago. It is because we must start to exercise the mind to prepare for the changes that are and will be taking place. And it will be by the will and the free will of all to either move on and let some of these things go or not. So whosoever will, let them come. Whosoever will, let them hear. But you will not be putting your responsibilities on others. There will be no more sacrificial Jesuses if that's what you've been trained in. Get over it, dump it, and start growing. And that's the truth. And so we're all held to the responsibility of actually using our free will and start creating our own condition, etc. So my position would be to get people thinking together, thinking again, so that we can stay on a high vibrational level and actually evolve for that which is good. And for those who want to stay negative, they will be tied to the third dimensional energy. That's their choice to do. For those who want to move on, then you have to start thinking quantumly, and you cannot hold others responsible for your thoughts. For your thoughts, your moral and ethical compass is your thoughts, and it is your choice to adhere to them or not. And the results or the rewards are your own. Whatever you sow, so shall you reap.
His question, Justin James, could you please ask Grand Sheik, with all this going on the V controversy, the planetary shifts going on.
That's a diversion too.
How is the Galactic Federation involved behind the scenes?
It's always been that way. And if you notice over the years, like I've always said, Dr. I usually don't go there, although I'm aware of a lot of those things, because
I'm there a lot.
People have a tendency to stop taking responsibility for the now, the present, the self, and keep looking to the outside. And this is why I don't go there, because the strength is actually in yourself. And many of those who've been wanting to conquer you, and many of those who have conquered you thus far, has depended on you keep looking out, for outside gods. Most of the God principles or the God sellers that have been given to you are actually what you would call daemons or lesser gods who have claimed to create you, and they actually have not. They have tampered with you, yes.
Absolutely.
But they have not been your creator. Now, so the deal of this, what is within you and in your DNA and in your consciousness is what's left of you in your reality, in your real true form. And that is the divine. Adhere to that, and their successes will be checked.
And may I add this to the questioner? When asked about what the Galactic Federation is doing behind the scenes, how are they involved? One of the things I know for a fact is that in most cases they observe and do not get involved unless we ask for their assistance, and we're being so distracted that we're not connected to that. We don't know how to reconnect with our galactic brotherhood.
People for years, Dr. Naila. Remember the rules here at Midgard. For the most part, they do not interfere unless we request.
And we are being so distracted, we don't even believe it is something we should be doing.
For lessons, and you agreed to be here, most of them. Now, there are a few that, by circumstance of interference, are not necessarily here by their own will, or at least on the immediate surface, etc. However, as a general rule, all of the beings, all the energies here that have manifested in the third dimensional plane are here because to be fixed, etc., to learn lessons, and some are here to observe. And this goes back to what we taught, 25 years ago or so about the monad and nomad, that concept. Well, that concept is a reality of the spiritual or experience of the spirit man in human flesh. And so the divine beings manifest in human flesh, etc., concept must be looked at, and also we must take responsibility and stop looking for our idol gods outside of ourselves. And I'm suggesting that would be the most successful way for us to achieve what you call the ascensions that people are actually seeking.
And I believe that what's going on with the V's is another diversion. Not only is it a diversion, it's another attempt to further nullify the ability to ascend.
Now, keep in mind, for those of you who do some research, keep in mind what they've been doing since the 1940s, is that they've been actually dealing with metal particles and nano technology in those V's, or interfering with the crystal stream, because they've been doing experiments with mice and rats for years to create hunger, to turn it off and on, etc. This is again how they've created much of the sicknesses and the stress and the diabetes among the people by actually by the flipping of a switch, actually making people think that they're hungry when they're not, in order to make them sick, then giving them foods that are modified that have no nutritional value, and so the people will overeat, trying to give themselves food and energy that they need, but they never get. And this is again why many people who don't understand the war operations of the psychic attack don't recognize why so many people, particularly in North America, distinguished from the rest of the world, so many of us are overweight, by virtue of actually attack through other V's that were given to you actually earlier. And also know this too, that autism that they put in the children, etc., is reversible. A lot of people don't know that. They don't want you to know that either. So if we're going to get into some of these things, I just want to throw that out there.
August 27th, we'll be able to talk about a lot of things on August 27th. Absolutely.
But keep in mind, we're under attack. And it's like this. Use your common sense. If someone is lying or misrepresenting, why would they block you? Why would they shut down sites? Why don't they allow the people who are exposing certain truths make fools of themselves? The real deal is that indexes librorum expurgatorius and indexes librorum or prohibitorum are still in effect. That's commonly known universally as the great Christian book learnings. It hasn't changed, it just has different names. So now they talk about demonetizing people's accounts, their sites or communication sites on social media. The operations did not change, they just have different names. And so all of us must be working toward cognizance and consciousness to reject the schism operations that are going on multiple levels. And if you start focusing on not blaming the Greys for what the hybrid Europeans are doing and blaming on the Greys to divert your attention from them, I think we'd be more effective in changing these conditions. And the other thing is, stop calling these people who are claiming to be constitutional officers, stop calling them officers, because they're not. There are no constitutional officers operating at North America as we speak. They are all de facto. I don't care what name they take. That's a fact. So observe them and watch them battle, because keep in mind, those who would honor treaty and constitution would have been doing that quite some time ago. But now that they're battling over this estate since the nations of the world, and remember, we've been telling you all for the last 7 years that the nations are going to stop buying U.S. Treasury bonds and that you're going to have a feedback loop. If you all go back and to some of our lessons here or lectures at We're Awakening Minds, we've been telling you this for the last 7 years to give some of you some insight to start preparing yourselves for what was to come. What you're seeing, it is already at hand, and some of this politics are what we told you about actually years ago.
Here's a question. Asia Andrea Bay says, please ask Brother Taj if he has been getting any dreams he wants to share about what's coming.
Well, I've been doing that for quite some years. I'm doing mostly what I'm doing now, to be honest with you, is observing. To be absolutely honest with you. Because, you know what, I think last year I started telling you that all masks are off. What I was actually saying is pretty much people, wherever they are spiritually, wherever their heart commitment is, that's where they are. And it's sort of like if you're talking about a storm or something coming, it is for the point of aiding people who are willing to use their intuitive mind to see things and to prepare themselves and people they love and their families to survive the turmoil that's being put upon us. But when you're already in the storm, it's like saying, I'm not necessarily inspired to talk about getting an umbrella when the storm is already here. So for the most part, I've been pretty much observing. And actually, if you pay attention to sometimes in this last year or so, me being redundant and getting bored is because I've already told you years ago, to be honest with you. Now, as far as other insights that you might say, some things I have not spoken because many in the dark priesthood are active trying to hurt people. And if you say certain things now, they will attack others. One of the things that I've recognized over the years with the hybrid Europeans, if they find someone who's spiritually strong that they have not been able to hurt, they'll hurt people around it. So some things I don't say deliberately for that purpose. However, so many things are actually ongoing right now to their negative. I'm kind of observing them trying to block and trying to destroy, and actually divine nature turning their own traps on themselves. So I'm doing a lot more observation now and not necessarily trying to project. Not that I can't, because I don't want to also distract people from paying attention to what's already going on and taking responsibility. Because one of the things, and if you see a lot of even some things that we discuss with each other now, people, many of the people are still in that psychology of looking for a sacrificial lamb, which must that psychology must leave. There's another reason why some things that I see that I don't talk about. Because even with some of the statements that were made earlier, where people try to make, people take this position of savior, etc., and whether they're qualified to save them type thing, and that whole concept is corrupt and wrong. If it's anything, I unconditionally reject that whole concept. But I do promote self-responsibility. And as we talked about, a moon ago, respect the intuitive mind, because much of what you ask is already with you. And particularly now in this placement. In this cycle placement, most of what you ask for, you could answer it yourself. But again, because we know that some people are still groggy and not awakened to a degree that they need be, is why we continue to do what we do.
There is a principle that's not only in the Bible, even though we know that comes from a whole lot of other texts of other literature, but also when they talk about the law of attraction and so forth. And it's simply this: ask and it shall be given. Knock and the door shall be open unto you. So a lot of things we don't have because we don't ask and we don't think that we're gonna get it, and we're always looking, like you said, we have that savior complex. It's always got to be something.
Get rid of.
Absolutely, got to know that it's within you.
The devil is in you, and the God is in you. This is why, if a lot of people will study Professor Drew's philosophies, a lot of the keys were already given, and a lot of people will repeat them. But we do recognize that people have not necessarily looked into the simplicity of certain things that were already given to you. Just needs to be applied. And it's interesting how some of your Gnostic philosophies have been given, and the people are asking for them, and they've actually already been given the answers. And this goes back to, where we often get into the habit of repeating phrases or philosophies without examining what we are saying. Mm-hmm. Like whosoever will, let them come. Whosoever will, let them hear. Mm-hmm. And the key is will. And this is important for everybody who's listening tonight. The will and the consciousness of humanity is severely being attacked as we speak. And if you will concentrate in those areas to redeem yourselves, much of the greater work for the upliftment will be done, even with people who think they have no power. And this is what we're moving to. This is what we're trying to encourage the people to respect. This is why we did the lecture moon ago or so of respecting the intuitive mind, because we know that much of that connection is there. It actually is. It's not mere philosophy. That's a fact. So they're attacking your DNA. This is why they want to put those metallic nanoparticles in you with the V, because that's the actual fact. And so because we're, as we've talked about years to people, letting them know that we are already biological transceivers. You must know about the biological form of humanity. That's number one. Number two, knowing that biologically or scientifically, they've been experimenting with nanoparticles in the bees, and it didn't begin now. They've been doing it for quite some time. in order to control or mind control, etc., which is why you see them desperately trying to get the people to take this V, because they're actually losing power on multiple fronts. And so these are acts of desperation on the point of the dark priesthood and the P2 Masons, etc., who've been misrepresenting themselves as Egyptian adepts. Keep that in mind. They are not. Yes.
Oops, I didn't drop that. But I'm reading.
Yes.
Also, I'm reading.
Dr. Nail is reading this book. So
I highly recommend it. The Popol Vuh.
This might be helpful to many of you,
especially in terms of what's going on now, because in that text, like it's sort of like the so-called Mayan Bible,
yes,
they talk about when we were tampered with, and how those who did the tampering felt that we were too intelligent, and they wanted to dumb us down. And one of the things they did was sprayed stuff on, like, so chemtrails are not new.
They're not new.
It's in this book.
And flight is not new.
Absolutely.
See, so you've been lied on multiple fronts, and the attacks are more serious than most of us think. However, it is not for you to be so intimidated to think that you have no power. The deal of it is keep in mind, respect the intuitive mind, know that will and intent and consciousness are under attack. If you're aware of that and focus in that area, many of the energies and the directions that humanity needs to go in, including the osmosis of knowledge, will actually activate. This is what they don't want you to know about yourselves.
I'm going to put this question up. I think it's very interesting. Boomin Gumbe almost looks like Nigar. I'm from Gumbe Nation in Terra Australis, falsely claimed as Australia. I need some knowledge to raise my people.
Same principles apply all over, because remember the same. Now keep in mind, in that area, which was also actually part of what, contrary to what people think, part of Mu and Pan, and what they call Atlantis, because of it together. There's been heavy focus in that area.
In that area, yeah.
In that area, because of the, what you would say, more purity of Aboriginal blood. And over the years, many of the family in that area or geographical area are more cognate of what you might call outside or off-world communications. And many of the brothers and sisters in that area, by not being bombarded with radio and TV for over the years, are still more in tune with their intuitive mind. And in fact, if avoiding many of the diversions, will be able to communicate or transfer much information to the rest of the human family, etc., to reconnect with nature. There's another reason why that area is under such heavy attack, and why they've been eating your children, so that many of the women will not bring in champions. Keep in mind, that's a fact.
So I don't know if the information on the flash,
I could go further
USB drive,
I could go further on that, but I won't at this time.
Would any information on the USB drive be helpful over there, or no? Not as much as
the conscious. The USB drive is more or less to bring a state of mind to get people to start rejecting the schism operations of the hybrids who have been pretending to be government. If that is achieved, that is the real missionary work of the flash drive, to be honest with you. To kind of encourage people to get to a point where nature starts taking over. You know how, like you say, if you're kind of pushing a car uphill, and you get to the top, and if you get to the top and let it go, that's kind of what we do with the flash drive. Keep that in mind. Because we know that you have opposition, particularly among our own. Keep in mind, a lot of the schism And a lot of the counter moves against the development or the uplifting of fallen humanity have been people who are compromised on our side, who have been pretending to be victims, but whose real mission is to cause disruption because they've been part of the corruption. So don't think that everybody that comes in this skin, etc., has best intentions for your people, because many of them are demons. That's a fact. They fool some, they don't fool people who see.
I'm gonna put this answer of the question up here because I think it's been up here like I've seen it so many times. How can I, as a 25-year-old Moor, set up a source for Moors that easily provides them conveyances that are made of and fueled by nature? What laws and treaties can I utilize for this?
You're on the path already. Go to Intuit Mind. Because remember, you will ask the God within. And again, what happens is that you start associating with people, or people will be brought into your presence who are in that state of ascension, and the keys are there, because even that intent is also projection, and that meditation is also projection or invocation. It actually is, and it'll be drawn to you. Particularly now, as the three-dimensional constructs are falling apart, which we've been telling you in the last couple of years. Almost everything in the institutions that were constructed in the third-dimensional energy are collapsing. And so by default, humanity will be pushed ahead anyway. That's why for people who are less studied, I just say start looking at the energies of Uranus, and it'll tell you a lot, even if you're not what you call astrologically astute. And again, a lot of what people are asking for is actually taking place while we're asking. You know, like, and the other deal of it is too, Dr. Naila, a lot of the ascension changes that people are asking for, the distractions are put out there to kind of distract some people from recognizing that a lot is already taking place even while we speak.
I don't know if you're...
And you'll get to a point where it's sort of like the energy or state of mind of the people when it reaches a certain point, it will be like they call 100th monkey type thing. Because really that's where we're moving in that direction already. This is again why you see the multiple strong attacks being made on humanity, which includes, but not limited to, the intrusion upon the crystal stream known as the V.
Well, here is a question. Please ask Taj, I don't know if you are familiar with this movie, to decipher the de facto government, shadow government, or well, I guess what the de facto shadow government is saying in the movie Space Jam Legacy. Thank you in advance.
I didn't see that movie.
Okay.
But I would tell you in general, without seeing the movie, that they're exposing to you a lot of pre-existing ancient technology presented as something new or introduced when actually it's old. And I'll say that without even seeing the movie.
Okay, let me see if there are any more questions. Okay. Interaction. All right, y'all. Respect each other. Let me see.
And again, I want to remind those of you who are sharing with us tonight to start looking at many of the people who have been making negative statements about the rise of the Moors or attacking them, to start looking at those people who are making the attacks and see what their motives are. and see if any one of them have identified, in fact, a treaty or constitutional law that them brothers and sisters violated. And identify any already established statement presented by any one of those complainants who presented information to show that they violated any laws. And I suggest that you've seen complaints, but you have not seen them show any law that they violated. On top of the fact that I'll show you something that they violated the law, they have accepted the strangers before their own blood. That's the violation that I've been looking at.
This is not a question, this is a comment, but I think it's 3 bases. Control your thoughts. Only allow positive images into the mind. Manifest your destiny. You are the light. Always seek that of the light. You can heal yourself and your circumstances with thought alone. So true.
Exactly. Man is mind.
Ashe.
Man is mind. And this is another reason why the dark priesthood promotes confusion, schism, and fear, to keep you destabilized and to divert your consciousness, because your consciousness is being attacked and your will is being attacked. So those identifying those 2 avenues of social chess should help a lot of people.
Let's see. Where do we go to request the flash drive? I've been scrolling it across the bottom. The USB drive is the flash drive. If you just text to this number, you will get the link. We have a brand new link. Real easy. Just text USB to that number that you see going across the screen right now, and you will get a link after the show, and you can order. It'll take you directly to the order page. Let's see if there are any more questions. Thank you. I don't know if you're Sheik. Agents in this chat. Probably. I'm American. Question. All right, here's one. Okay, Brother Taj, what is minimum contact concerning challenging jurisdiction of the court?
See, this is the deal. Recognize that there are no lawful courts operating on the land. That's the first thing you must remember. There are no logically, there are no constitutional courts nor constitutional officers operating on the land. Although you may see Mr. T and some other people behind him militarily that are presenting a position of republic or restoration. However, they were not assigned by us or the people. Therefore, even they are, in fact, de facto. However, due to the fact that they are standing up for those principles, it's certainly supported and lauded. However, what you have is military operations, in fact, and you have no operative, legitimate constitutional government operating at North America, nor the courts. And again, this is why for the last 25, 30 years, when we started doing jurisdictional agreement of jurisdiction challenges and pro warranto exercises, i.e. mock court, etc., we've been promoting the restoration of the consular venue, diversity of nationality, in relationship to treaties and constitutions, etc., in order to hold these people who are pretending to be government to the obligations of the positions that they're claiming, etc. And in the process, it exposes the whole paradigm. And in the process, it makes people actually more conscious, and at the same time gives people exercises needed to start being jurisconsults, etc., which is a state of mind politically that we need to be in that state of mind operatively anyway.
Okay.
And this is also why people who have been less than honorable among our own, and others have been staunch criticizers of the restoration of constitutional principles, i.e., diversity of nationality comes to the court. And even some of them saying it never existed, which they are lying. And I suggest many of you read Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution for the United States, coming from Muslim law, as Obama talked about, and the enforcement of treaty law. Because that is the venue that has been neglected when you're talking about legitimate courts. So the only ones who legitimately operating are people who are exercising or entertaining treaty and constitution enforcement. So Noble Ali said to the Moors when he established the old Canaanite temple in 1913, he says, "Help me in my great missionary work to bring my people back into the constitutional fold of government, enforcing our Constitution for the United States of America." And what he know, as soon as you did some research, you would see that they had modified and altered it and have a private operation, or what they call a second constitution of the United States, which is the fraud and the de facto. But he said to you also that the half has not been told. If I told you everything, you go back to sleep. But once you find out the fraud, those who are sincere will be honorable enough to restore and activate the existing legitimate courts, and logically that would be the jurisdiction of the Moorish nation, etc. And he says, where is the Moorish Empire? Northwest of Mexico. There you go, when you question that.
If you all are having problem with the link as I put it up, just text 827 to 302-345-0500 and I'll send you the link if you want to get a ticket for our close and personal. We have about 40 some tickets remaining, so you want to do that sooner than later. Let me see.
And keep in mind, remember we talked to Dr. Naila, and we talked actually, in the area of 7 years back on up, and we was mentioning it every once in a while when the people start doing trusts, etc., or even going in that direction. It would kill the bonds, it would kill the straw man that everybody keeps trying to capture, which they will never allow you to do. But what it does, it kills the bond system. And so it doesn't matter how many straw instruments they start creating, they can't sell them because nations are not buying them. That's how you capture the straw man, you choke it.
And all you have to do is go into these stores and these especially even these big box stores and so forth, and see how they are tied to this overarching corporation, because everybody is moving stuff around to make it look like they still have stock and so forth, when everything is being depleted and not restocked because they can't get it.
As an example, we had a conversation a week or so ago or more, and with problems that we had with finance that you put out a lot. And what did I say to you? I said, they're not going to tell you, but they have a supply issue. What did they tell you when you went there?
They're having an issue with supply.
Because I already knew what was happening. And I've been telling people for the last few years that they're going to stop buying U.S. Treasury bonds and stop accepting the private commercial paper of the Jesuit order, which you've been calling the Federal Reserve note, which is not money. Therefore, they're going to have supply issues all around the planet. What's going on right now is Mr. T is negotiating, because remember, they're defunct. They have defaulted on all of those bonds that we've been telling you for the last 7 years was going to happen. And so all of them are going to have supply issues. And so again, this goes again why they want to do the V thing, to put the people to sleep and control their minds and then kill off some of these people. Because they already know that they've been putting people who have what you call Social Security age and people, and I've been telling you all for 15 years, 401ks are going to be 409ks. I've been telling you for years. Well, guess what? There are 409ks in all of the orders. That's the fact. The deal of it is, a lot of the stuff that they're doing now is to cover up the fact that all of the institutions have failed. They have collapsed. And so they're keeping the people preoccupied with fear and one V after another V, or another V after another V, and another version of the V after the other V to cover up the fact so that you don't go to these people that you've been calling your priests and your politicians and physically choke them for what they have actually done. They're diverting your attention off of themselves. That's the real truth. And they were putting people in nursing homes to kill them off so that they would not have to meet the obligations of their both pensions and retirements, which they're obligated to because they've stolen it all already. And guess what? The Greys didn't do that. These people that you've been calling congressmen and congresswomen have done this to you. And they're not your congressmen and they're not your congresswomen. They are private board of director operatives for the Jesuit order and members of the Roman Curia and members of the Circle Church and Chancery, which we've been telling you for years. And all of these attacks are diversions so that you don't look at who the real problem has been and is and are. And backed up by people you've been calling preachers and pastors. And all of them been doing human trafficking. Don't you ever think it hasn't been that. And when you find out some more stuff, you're going to find out shortly, most of them people are going to go into hiding. Even some of the ones that you trusted.
Here's a question from Turtle Hustle. There has been several spiritual masters from the East who have been coming to America since the late 1800s, but they teach more hybrid Europeans than Moors in America. Why is that?
Keep in mind, the Moors in America have been the farthest away from their law and culture. And we have, not that they haven't come to us, but we have been rejecting it, following after idol gods of Rome that we knew nothing of. It's not that they haven't come to you, you haven't listened.
Okay.
In other words, you've been hard-hearted and rebellious, and you are the direct heirs. And you've been claiming names and principles that delude to forced servitude and connotative slavery, and then wanting to charge the world with it. Well, guess what? When you dishonor your mothers and your fathers, in law, all over the planet, you have no right of inheritance. That's a choice. And you can't say that men didn't come here and tell these people that they're not Negro, Black, or colored, because that is the fact, the case. As a matter of fact, the only organization that was set up actually in contemporary times to address that absolutely directly is the Moorish Divine and National Movement. And look how much negative misrepresentation has been hoisted upon Noble Drew Ali and the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, which was put in place to actually directly address that issue. So it's not that they haven't come, many have not listened. So by your free will, you get what you reap. You're reaping what you've been sowing. So don't feel sorry for it. That's why over the years, Dr. Naila, you hear me always say, when people come to this information, don't start playing victim and don't start feeling sorry for yourselves, because we're not innocent in this.
That's true. I was trying to find this question to put it up. I know it was Jasmine Miller. I saw it. But the question was whether or not, because she's in the UK, whether or not they can buy a ticket for the 27th and log in. Unfortunately, like the revolution, this is not going to be televised. We call this up close and personal because we feel that this is an opportunity for us to be completely open and honest and in an environment
without interference,
because we know when we're on this kind of a platform, we're speaking to everybody and anybody. And you can put any picture up that looks like you're a Moor. So this is actually not going to be televised, although it will be recorded. we will determine how we want to make and if we're going to make it available to those who were not able to come in person, but it will not be live streamed, unfortunately. So just to answer anyone else's question besides Jasmine's. Let me see. Any more questions? Okay. There was a question about you addressing the door to. I think you did mention it. The door-to-door V campaign. You have kind of mentioned it.
Those are members of the Roman Curia, some of which are not necessarily just on that side of Curia operations. Some of them were actually replaced there to actually, as what you call double agents, to actually undermine the operations of the dark priesthood and the synagogue of Satan, which is absolutely entrenched in what is known as the Democratic Party, also in the fake Republican Party known as rhinos. So keep in mind, you actually observe, because you have many of them who are sleepers are actually on both sides. So this again why you have to be spiritually astute and pay attention, and don't necessarily take sides, but observe, because this all this, much of what's going on now is for your observation. It's for heavy learning, because as we said a couple of years ago, things are going to be accelerating so fast that most of the people, when they start recognizing what's really been going on, if they don't have a strong constitution, they will actually crack up. And that's not an understatement. And that's true. Things will be exposed to you that are very so traumatic and so ugly that one of the things that many of us have to do is learn to succor each other or to help each other to handle what's coming forth. So it's not just the surface politics as you see it. Keep in mind there's uglier, larger, what you might call clock of destiny going on by measurements, cycle measurement that most of us aren't used to dealing with. Some people who are adeptus at this know that cycle placement, are looking at from another dimensional perspective, that until people get to a certain level of comprehension, that it would almost be not a waste of time to tell them, but actually it'd be a distraction. So what we try to do is get people to start respecting their intuitive mind so that some more things can be said. However, we're already not coming to, but we're already at a point of exposure that a lot of people will not be able to handle the information that you're going to be smashed with. And I say that just like that, smashed with.
Yeah, it's ugly. A lot of it's ugly.
Not, when I wrote that poem in Moors Defined, lesson book number 1, and I talk about the God sellers. The God sellers are going to be in trouble, because you're going to find a lot of people that have been running around talking about gods are actually the absolute opposite. And so when you're talking about the board of directors, and this is fact that people need to know, that from a specific and documented position, the persons who you're calling the Congress and the Senate for the United States are all, bar none, members of the Roman Curia and are on the board of directors for the Rothschild, which means Red Shield, and that's just the front, because that not even who it is. And the operations for the synagogue of Satan, who have been ruling Midgard for quite some this last millennia, let's put it that way. And the anthropomorphic perception that you know as Jesus, look at it anthropomorphically, has already been on the path of restoration of that which is correct and right. Whether you use the name Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, etc., you're really talking about an energy spirit that is really the same. That energy has already been here and is already operating now on another level, dimensional level, to defeat the dark priesthood. And so your politics is a lower level reflection of that. Know that that is the truth.
I'm gonna we're almost some of the things that some people are interested in are things that are going to be addressed over on my new channel, because everybody doesn't want to hear about the metaphysical or the galactic and all that, even though we all need to know, because it's going to be more and more apparent as time goes by in the very very near future.
You're not even going to.
They're going to need to know.
You're not even going
to be on you.
Put it this way: you're not even going to be going into maybe what you might call another. You know how people looking at 222, 223. You won't get past that before much of what we've been telling you for years will be smashing you in your face.
Well,
so it's sort of like it's things will be accelerating and happening and taking place so fast. Some things have been slowed down only in the nature of having compassion for humanity, not necessarily to hide things from you, but actually to protect your mental. Because one of the things that some who are trying to do good are trying to protect your consciousness, which is under attack. Because your consciousness, if it goes negative, you'll start manifesting for the dark priesthood, which we've been doing with our adopted belief systems, thinking that we were helping that which is divine, which has much to do with the condition that exists here at Midgard, which we're trying to help reverse.
So I want you to subscribe, go to YouTube and put in a search, Dr. G is official. Now it's going to pop up Darius is official. No, you want Dr. G is official. I only need, there's like over 1,000 of you on here right now. I only need 140 more subscribers to get to 1,000. And I appreciate that, because I haven't even put any live content on there. So 800 and whatever, 60 of you have already subscribed. 140 of you, 1,083 that I see right now, can go over to YouTube, to Dr. G is official, and subscribe, so that those of you who want the esoteric information will be able to get that, apart from this channel, which is more concerned with more science and so forth. But direct civics, but metaphysics, the esoteric is more science. You need to know that.
It is.
It's very important that you know that. It's very important that you get back to your divine self, your divine mind, your divine abilities, because a lot of the things that you are belly aching about and wanting somebody else to do, you wouldn't have to have that type of experience, because you'd be able to manifest the outcomes yourself.
Physician, heal thyself.
So go over there, 140 of you.
Remember, we're promoting responsibility.
So,
we're not promoting followership. We're promoting self-responsibility.
Here's a question here, and I thought this was where did it go? Somebody asked if, and forgive me if I didn't actually pull up your question, but I remember what it was. They asked if the here it is. DJ, come to pull it up. Is the IRS still operating? I still haven't gotten my refund, and I filed it on March 15th. That is ridiculous. Somebody else told me the same thing today.
The IRS is being dismantled, and by technical legal process is non-operative. However, some of the paid agents within that program operations of the Roman Curia have been moved to the Treasury Department for the United States, and this is to repurpose some of their activities, and some of them are being removed altogether on multiple levels. And the real deal of it is some of the fines in violation that have taken place apply to those who, and many who have been violating human rights and international law. Their their resources are being confiscated to refund operations of a appearance of legitimate government operating under constitutional principles, i.e., and that platform is what Mr. T represents. Whether or not those manifests will come to be is for you to see. However, that is part of the battle that's going on in the background. So to put it in just straightforward to you, the IRS is being dissolved.
Hi. Yeah.
And if some of you will notice that many of you have probably been notified that your credit cards aren't working, which I told you 7 or 8 years ago would start happening.
Yeah, they're shutting down a lot.
Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. They've been trying to hide it, but it's like everything is breaking. Every institutional platform is breaking. And this is again why they've been so hostile to anyone who exposes truth, because the deal of it is they don't want you to look at them, because a lot of the people you've been calling government is really your demons. And they ain't great either.
And if you think that person, that Mr. B, is the same Mr. B that was at my graduation 40-some years ago, that's not him. Trust and believe.
You know, without going into it really deep, you got projections, you got clones, you got CGI, etc.
We watched today some news on YouTube, and the people, I guess it was from a few days ago, but the correspondent said over to these two individuals who were in Washington, supposedly in DC, in the DC area, for I think there was the lawyer that was being arraigned or something. You remember that? Mm-hmm. And it was obvious. They had a video playing in the background, and they were green screened. I mean, everything that we see
CGI
is like a big psyop movie that's being projected in front of us as real. And I don't know how many people are falling for this stuff now. I mean, you could just tell now things that we took for granted were real in the past. Now it's like the eyes of our understanding being enlightened.
If you notice that they're that all around the world in different nation, state territories, you're having massive flooding and storms that are not harmonic with the seasons. Those are diversions too.
Yeah, so much.
But again, remember we told you years ago, we said, time's going to come, you're going to be putting those credit cards in the machines, and the machine's going to go burp. Well, it's happening already, and you will see it accelerating. For those of you who doubt what I say, start doing some research on Wells Fargo and that other HBC game, and you're going to start happening at Chase, and then it's going to start accelerating. So we told you years ago to take your fiat out of them banks.
Get you some
Don't keep
silver.
any more in there than you need to keep those accounts operating while transition is being made. Because what they're going to do, they're going to bail in to save themselves, and they will sacrifice you to do so. This is again why we've been telling you for years to start getting silver. Now, not that, because that's the money. Not that you wouldn't get gold. It's just that when you get gold, you're not going to be transferring your everyday affairs in gold. That would be your backup. Not only that, the silver is going to jump far higher than you could ever imagine.
And you're going to be able to get some gold with a few pieces of silver.
Yeah. Keep in mind, silver has more industrial uses and also medical uses than gold does.
Absolutely.
But keep in mind what we've been telling you for years, cosmologically, gold is the alchemical metal for the sun. Copper is the alchemical metal for Venus. Silver is the alchemical metal for the moon. And so the moon economy on the earth controlling the blood flow and the movement of the waters is where you get moon or eco in agriculture from in its dynamics. And so that is the money. And therefore, in the constitution of the principles of the Asiatic nation, gold and silver coin is the only thing that's used universally as a general rule in contractual agreement for the satisfying of debts. So it cannot be paid without gold and silver coin until such time, and this is after thousands and thousands and thousands of years that we have changed that process, and we have not changed that constitution of operations on Midgard. And therefore, they give you something else and tell you it's money. They're lying to you. Therefore, credit is not money. Federal Reserve notes are not money, and you've not been allowed to handle money for years. Keep that in mind, not to divert you from the subject matters that we're talking about at the moment.
Mercy and Freeman, your question about what's meant by a gray, I think somebody else responded, but yes, grays are ETs or alien beings.
Not new.
Nope, been around. Some say that they're not even biological.
That's a loose name. You got that right. Some of them, yes, a few of them are.
Some are
are actually biological robots.
Right. That's what I mean.
You got that right. Many of them are simply, they don't have what the soul that you talk about. They take orders. You might call it biological AI with some of them. But again, like I said before, I don't divert people to that because many people aren't what you would call in the frame of mind to handle that, and we have a tendency to keep getting diverted from things that you need to address in front of you. You know, it's sort of like you've heard me always say, why have a discussion with people what's on the dark side of the moon when they can't get across town without getting profiled? So I more or less try to deal with mundane things, down to earth things that help people take responsibility to solve a lot of our problems here in Midgard, so you can prepare for other things. It's sort of like the principle of how dare you claim the love of God you do not see, and love not your brothers and sisters whom you see by the day. Again, my position has always been, why discuss the dark side of the moon when we don't even know the principles of this firmament that we know as Midgard or Earth, when most people don't even know that this particular Earth is Midgard. So why are we going to discuss things that are beyond us? My issue is let's start solving some of the problems before us, meaning that let's start eating the plate of dinner that's before us before we start arguing about dessert. Not that dessert is not relevant.
I see a couple of, as we get ready to, I'm not going to miss this opportunity to, particularly since I know this is real. There's several questions, or a couple of questions, not several. Turtle Hustle says, how does stacking gold and silver protect us during this economic meltdown?
It doesn't.
That
concept is also misrepresented too.
Right. And somebody else said it was hard to get silver here. I don't know where here is.
Of course it is.
I'm running at the bottom of the page. If you are in the U.S., if you're in the U.K. jurisdiction, you can get the silver for as little as 35 notes an ounce, a coin per coin.
And remember, a few months ago it was what, 23?
23. I was so glad that I got 100 plus 200 ounces at 23. That went up $11 an ounce. So if you see that, www.getpaidmore.com, go visit that site. You can get silver as a preferred customer, or you can get silver as a wealth ambassador and get paid.
And keep this in mind. The reason why we suggest it because we already know that the dark priesthood is attacking the people. Because remember, part of their attack is economic. And so the deal of it is because you're going to have, they'll call them blackouts, whether they're dealing with the institutions that you become dependent on, whether it's talking about the electrical, whether it's talking about movement on the roads, whether it's talking about the institutions that you become dependent on, all of them can be called blackout when they either collapse or they interrupt what you call free flow or fungibility of things in order to cause injury on the people. And in a state of emergency, you can spend silver and gold all around the world, whereas the fiat currencies will be no different than the wrappers from a discarded piece of candy that's thrown in the gutter. it will not work. This is why we tell you, it's not to save you, it's to give you some sense of trade opportunities under emergency causes, emergency times. This is why those who know always carries in their pocket a silver coin. All around the world, those who know what's going on for states of emergency. And so we're encouraging you to get in that state of mind to take responsibility.
Do it now. I mean, I've been hearing you talk about silver for at least 9-10 years that I've known you, and it wasn't until last year that opportunity presented itself, and I have over 400 ounces now.
Every, like over the years, whenever, even if I pull in my pocket every once in a while, 40 years, I'd pull out silver or gold coin and show it to people, to show them what others who know what's going on do as a trained habit for states of emergency. These people keep trusting in these Roman institutions that are collapsing. And in an emergency, you can be out of town or something. That'll get you home. That'll feed you, but nothing else will. That's not conjecture. That's fact. Anywhere on the planet.
Okay. Anybody that's still asking about a flash drive, go back and look at the video. You'll see this video. You'll see underneath it says to text USB to 302-345-0500. Look at that. I will send you the link. They'll take you directly to purchase a flash drive, whether you're in the U.S. If you're not in the U.S., if you're in Germany and UK
jurisdiction,
and
I always say Germany or US
Germany,
jurisdiction,
if you're
not a place.
Okay, well, if you're in Germany, UK, and
jurisdictions,
and Canaan land jurisdictions, say that, because I will send you a different link than if you're in the U.S. jurisdiction. That's all I'm saying. We have two different links, so because it costs a bit more to send it to those places. So if you are in any of those places, or if you're in somewhere else, let me know so I can find out what it costs to get it to you. You'll have to give me an address, and then if you're in Swaziland or something, I need to know so I can check the address.
And for those who don't comprehend why we keep making that correction, because politically, if you say you're in the U.S., that means they have jurisdiction over your state. It's not a place to go. It's not a country to be reached. It's a political jurisdiction, not a geographical location. Keep that in mind. And they will use that against you every time that you state it. Keep that in mind. That's why you shouldn't be making those corrections. Not being disagreeable. It's correcting you. You need to know that you're under attack. And the enemy's not without. The enemy is within.
Yes.
The enemy is in the gates already.
They have a thing called the enemy at the gate.
Not at the gate, they're in.
In the gate.
They're in the house.
And if you need the link, I just put this in the chat. If you can't find the Dr. Gia's official channel, everything goes to 302-345-0500, but just text channel. I will send you the link, and you can click on the link and subscribe. So if you're looking for my channel, text channel. If you're looking for a USB drive, text USB drive. If you want to get a ticket for August 27th, text 827. You will get the proper link. And if you're from another jurisdiction other than the U.S. jurisdiction, let me know so I know what to send you. Now, we are at our end of this particular. We were only going to be on it till 8:30 because of Grand Sheik's commitment at 9. And I'm going to give you a minute or a breather in between. I want to thank each and every one of you. We do for tuning in and for your support. All the love I see in the chat. I'm not going to go over what happened earlier. That was painful, but it had to happen, and we need to have a place where we can all, we may not all agree, but we can be in harmony at the same time, even in our not agreeing. So I thank you all for
even in our schisms,
right?
But recognize the schism.
Yes.
Don't ignore them. Take responsibility.
Yes. So, and August 27th is going to be amazing. We're going to have all kinds of little things that you are going to want to be a part of on that day. and I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to being able to be, as we say, up close and personal. And I think you will appreciate that day and the information that you'll be able to glean from it. Again, it will not be televised, it will not be live streamed, and we're not sure if it will even be released, but we will be able to tell you things that you can definitely share with your loved ones and those that you're in association with, and hopefully give you things that you'll be able to take back with you that will assist you further in uplifting fallen humanity. Sheik?
Yeah, so thank you all for spending this time with us this evening, and trust that we helped or encourage many of you to take a strong and deliberated stand in helping the great missionary work of uplifting fallen humanity. Please subscribe to Dr. G's new YouTube channel. Dr. G is official. YouTube requires 1,000 subscribers in order for the channel to go live. So click the link posted in the chat, and you also take a screenshot.
Just search for
and search for that link,
or just send a text that says channel, and I'll send you the link.
Anyway, thank you all for sharing with us tonight, and do your part in this great missionary work of helping to bring our people back into the constitutional fold of government, enforcing our Constitution for the United States, which comes from Muslim law, did not come from the hybrids. So keep that in mind. And with that, I'll say have a grand evening.
Have a grand evening, y'all.
Deeper and deeper I go. I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawake in your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you know what's in store just for you. No more living the life I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is true, yes. Then you know what's in store just for you. No more living the life I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.